Start the recording. You have stumbled onto another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we strive for ways to achieve those two goals and we invite our friends on to help us. And today, we're very lucky to be joined by Kate Beeders. And I'm going to actually let you, Kate, explain why you are the perfect person to continue our Millionaire Mastermind series.
Hi. Well, first of all, thanks, Christine. I'm excited about this, and I'm looking forward to And actually, for a little background for the listeners, we actually started having a conversation. You're giving me background about the podcast, and I'm like, hold it, because that's what we need to talk about for today, because it's my area of brilliance. So, just a little bit, a nutshell about me is that I came out of the corporate world. Most recently, before I started my own business, I was a business development executive, which is a fancy way of saying sales and things like that, and I sold millions and millions of dollars each year, which, Christine, you're in sales, to sell millions and millions and millions each year it takes a lot. And I did that, and I'm a bit of an introvert. I had to learn how to have sales conversations and how to overcome objections, get in the door, figure out magic price points, get repeat business. And many of my customers I kept for, 15, 16 years. And then when the economy tanked in 2008, 2009, at the tail end of it, my company first merged and it was acquired. I went and made a change. I'm what they call an accidental entrepreneur. Because what you're supposed to do, and you're listening to us, but I'm giving like quote marks so Christine, you can see. I'm like, what you're supposed to do is go and you put out a 6-month plan and you figured it all out, and that's how you become an entrepreneur. You start getting clients, so basically your new income is able to then replace your current income from your job. I didn't. I kind of got thrown into it. It was totally unplanned. And because I did get other offers, do something similar. And when I was in corporate, Christine, I was making a pile of money. It was almost like I was printing it in the basement. The economy was so good. There was so much money flowing. I just couldn't spend it fast enough. I mean, honest to goodness, I was taking like 6 luxury vacations a year, and not just for like a long weekend. I would go for like 10 days. And it was wonderful. But when I started my own business, again, totally accidental, wasn't planned. And in the beginning, it was, the tail end of a recession. So it was a very, very difficult time because people were just not spending money. I kind of used the judgment. My very solid research was I'd ask at my hair salon, how busy are you? And that was my method of telling if the economy was back or not, because they said they saw people stretching out appointments and people weren't buying products. But when people started buying products, the economy started coming back. Because you know how people will go and they'll buy
That's a
the
great
shampoo.
barometer.
Exactly. So forget all these fancy dancy people with their Harvard PhDs and all that. I figured it out. But anyways, first year, very, very tough. I had to learn so much. And thank goodness I started, hiring coaches, and my income grew exponentially. And, here I am a decade later. One of my coaches actually ignited me into the 5% club. And only 5% of all entrepreneurs, Christine, make over a certain level of income, have a certain profitability, and have a certain longevity. So I'm really proud of the work I do. And now what I do is I teach both mindset and strategy. I combine the two together. You being in real estate, you have to, you have to know what you're doing. You have to have, I've had enough real estate clients. You have to have a plan, you have to have a strategy, you have to have your, know what you're doing to get clients and to move property, but you also have to have the belief in yourself. And so I basically combine both those two together, and the results people get are phenomenal. So now I speak, before the pandemic, I was speaking on stages, keynoting across North America, belong to a big fancy speakers bureau, best-selling books, lead retreats, coach clients, all that kind of stuff. So I'm really happy to be here because I think we're going to end up talking a bit more about mindset than strategy. And perhaps that's the best place to go. But let's see, I'm open to wherever you want to go with this. So.
Okay, good. Well, we'll do our usual meandering
Perfect.
and allow the conversation to bring us where it wants us to go.
Perfect.
So, Kate, you did. What my question that is in my mind, because I feel like no matter what it is that you want to do successfully, someone has already written. There are 100 books on it, right?
Sure.
If not more, right?
Yep.
No matter what it is that you want to be able to do, you want to learn how to invest in stocks, you want to become an entrepreneur in a certain area. It's out there. It's not a surprise. People aren't trying to keep it a secret.
Yep.
So why aren't we all already living our dream, being completely successful, and just knocking it out of the park financially?
So a couple of reasons. And first of all, if we had hours, which we don't, but if we had hours, we could cover the whole gamut. It's a couple of things, and I'm going to give you the bigger points. First is, first of all, knowing how to do it. Now, granted, a lot of this stuff, as you alluded to, is on the internet. How do you do this? How do you do that? Like, in your industry, how do you sell a house or something? Or a lot of it's out there. But where people fall short is their beliefs. And this is the belief in themselves, what they actually can accomplish. In fact, my blog that's going to be published tomorrow is basically talking about how you can't outperform your self-image. So perfect timing to ask me this question, because you can't. And this, whatever you believe you're capable of, that's going to be your limit. And most people are holding on to these stories of what is possible, what is not possible, and that's what holds them back, as well as their belief of what um, how they see themselves compared to in the outside world. So how they compare themselves to others. I know, I mean, like I said, I've certainly have enough clients in your industry. I mean, you guys, and I don't know you, I mean, you and I have never talked before, but I'm sure you can at least say for your counterparts, people are always comparing themselves in your industry, right? Who's doing what, and look, they got that, they got that listing and I didn't get it, or they took it away from me, or, whatever, right? So everybody's always
It'd be
comparing
very
themselves.
competitive. Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. So really what it comes down to in a nutshell is what how you see yourself and what you believe you're capable of receiving back. And I don't know if you talk at all about laws of attraction. Do you bring that into? Okay. So for your listeners, laws of attraction, real basic, super basic, is what you believe is what you receive back. So all of us hold limits. And the thing is, Christine, is that most of us don't even realize the majority of the time when we hold limits, as well as, and this is, I also teach neuroscience, and, somewhere about 70%, depending on which researcher you speak to, of our thoughts we had yesterday are the same thoughts we'll have today and be the same thoughts we have tomorrow, as well as the action we took yesterday, 70%, most of the stuff's the same today and same tomorrow. So people, back to your question, how come I can't do better? Because you did the same damn stuff yesterday that you're doing today, you're doing tomorrow. And why won't you try something different? Either you're lazy, you don't know how, you believe you'll succeed, you don't think about it, and that's the big thing. You're just not thinking. You're just going from point A to point B without even questioning, why am I doing this? And for anybody who's ever had a habit, like when I was in college, I used to smoke. I mean, at a certain point, you don't even think about lighting up that cigarette. You just have that cigarette. And so it's the exact same thing when you go home, or you're at work, or going on Facebook, or going on Twitter, or calling a friend, or shopping online. You don't even think. Your brain just automatically goes to that other place, when instead you could be picking up the phone and calling somebody.
It's so true. The amount of time that we waste, right? If we
Hmm.
had a goal, and that's where my whole uh, focus is on making sure that my goals are big enough so
Hmm.
that they are going to draw me into a new place. And of course, it's an uncomfortable place oftentimes.
Yes.
And as you say, we're listening to those stories that we tell ourselves every day, where that we can't. That's impossible.
Yep.
So I'll share with you. I actually am. Here we are in the beginning of November, and I'm $150,000 short of my financial goal for the year.
Hmm.
And so I continue each day to say my affirmation that I'm going to make this amount of money. And in the back of my mind, at the same time that I'm talking, my mind is going, "Are you crazy? There are
That's
2 months
right.
left. How in the world?" So I said, "All right, listen, how could that happen?" Right? I had to try to convince my brain, because otherwise, you're right. You're just like arguing against yourself.
And exactly. And so two things you just brought up, and one is affirmations, which are obviously very important to laws of attraction, but a lot of times people write affirmations in such a wrong way that it becomes almost like a Mount Everest that's almost impossible to climb. And if you don't believe your affirmation, you shouldn't even be saying it. I'm just telling you honestly, for anybody listening, like, the affirmation, like, I easily make $1 million every year. Well, if you believe, like, no effing way possible. And I'm not a big swearer, but I'm just saying, just to prove a point. If you don't believe it's even possible, do not waste your time saying it, because you're just creating more negative energy inside your mind. It's not supporting you. Does that make sense, Christine? So if you're able to
Absolutely,
shift an
absolutely.
affirmation to one that's a bit more believable, and what people forget is that, so let's say you want to make $1 million, because that's what your premise of your whole show is. Let's be a millionaire, right? You know that you don't have to hit $1 million the next day. You know, I know when I first started my business, I was just like, gee, if I can just make a couple $100 more. And then if I can make $1,000, and okay, now I made $1,000, now can I make 2,000? And what people forget is that you can keep doing it that way too, and growing it that way. So you have less obstacles in the way, and there's less places for your mind to kind of jump to saying like, who are you kidding? We're in a, you know, there's an election this week that goodness knows when we'll know the winner. You know, maybe by the time this plays, we will know the winner, whether we want to know or not. You know, that we're, you know, the economy is in a bad shape. The pandemic is crazy. You know, your mind can go to all these real places, which technically are true, and stop yourself. So that's one thing I just want to point out to everybody listening is really think, and that's something I teach my clients is really be careful about what you are saying to yourself. And just because, yes, affirmations are a big deal, doesn't necessarily mean you should be saying them, or if you are saying them, make sure that these are the affirmations that support you and don't hurt you. Now, the other thing I want to bring up, and this is partly from my mindset teaching and also partly from being business development, where also we had goals, right? You know, and they used to have this, obviously there was no pandemic. They'd have big ceremonies, you get prizes, and you know the whole deal for selling gazillion dollars worth of stuff. And you know, because we used to chase after, we used to call it chasing when I did business development, chase after these big multi-gazillion dollar from like Fortune 100 companies and all this stuff. And one thing that was I just going to say, you have to know why you're doing this, right? And it has to be more than just so I hit my goal. And you want to be really, really clear on your why. And sometimes the why, quite simply, is I just want to be able to pay my mortgage this year. You know, it's sometimes it's just, it doesn't always have to be the be all and end all. Like I'm going to create a nonprofit that so every child in the world gets educated. It doesn't always have to be that big a thing, you know, but you want to be really clear on your why. So then when you do start hitting the stumbling blocks, like, wait a minute, I'm 6 weeks out. It's going to be impossible. I won't be able to hit my goal. When you start getting really in touch, Christine, like, you know, my child's going to be starting college soon, and I'm going to, you know, I want to pay for that so he doesn't, or she doesn't need to get a scholarship, or, you know, I really want to be able to go on a nice vacation once the pandemic's lifted, or, you know, my bathroom is falling apart and I need to get it, you know, whatever, or whatever your motivation is. But when you really get in touch with that, that helps you on the days that, or the moments of the time that are difficult for you to move forward.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, knowing your why.
Yeah.
Because you're right, if it's just a random number, right? I'm just going to add a zero to my last year's income and then, hey, you know, but it has to resonate with you emotionally.
It really, really does. And one of the things I wanted to just make sure I bring up, because I kind of laugh when people talk about like being a millionaire, because coming from my world, and I'm saying this with all due respect, but just my perspective, that I've gotten to know a lot of the quote 7+ figure coaches and entrepreneurs in my world. And it's amazing how, yes, they might be bringing in the income, but yet they don't have any cash. And I want to just bring that point up because it's something I remember hearing years ago from my accountant that, you know, I was like working in corporate, you know, I don't know, I must have been in my early 30s and I was talking about making more money. He's like, hey, he goes, you know, you might see all these big fancy houses. He said, but you don't know what's going on inside of them. And, you know, here it is, you know, kind of circles back around, you know, years later that a lot of these people who look so impressive, right? Because they got the fancy shots and they're doing the fancy dancy stuff, can't always pay their bills. They can't always, always make payroll. They can't pay their affiliates and so on and so on. And I'm not saying everybody, so please understand, I'm not saying everybody. All I just want to say to everybody is really, something I teach my clients is swim in your own lane. Swim in your own lane. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing because you have no idea what is going on behind the scenes. And yes, millionaire is a catch-all word, but you know what? I'd rather be profitable any day of the week.
That's absolutely true. I was actually talking to somebody about that the other day. It's like if you make, $9 million a year, but you spend 10 million,
That's right.
you're not just broke, you're a lot more broke than I am. So you're, y- it's absolutely what you keep, it's your lifestyle. And that's why it's the term really for the name for the podcast is financial independence, because it's matching, it's aligning your lifestyle with your
Hmm.
income so that you don't have to worry where your next meal is coming from, so that you can have some sort of passive income stream that's going to support whatever lifestyle you're comfortable with. And then
Exactly.
if you want to kick it up a notch,
You just
you
make more
can, but
money. Yeah, you just make
yeah,
more money.
exactly.
Yep. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
The very first person I ever interviewed for the podcast was Tyler Sheff, who has his own podcast called The Cash Flow Guys. And he said, you figure out how to make $100 passive income, and then just do that as many times as you need to
Yeah. Yep.
to support yourself in the way that you want to be supported. So, yeah, absolutely. So, how do people? I feel that sometimes the problem is that we are running, we are doing everything on autopilot. So how do you
Mhm.
encourage people to stop and take a little inventory and figure out what they need, where they actually want to go, and how they need to go about it?
So really and truly, it's by having a coach. And the reason I'm just saying it, okay, yes, I am a coach, but here's why. And I even heard my neuroscience who's a teacher, who's a neuroscientist, actually say this is like a neuroscientist proven thing too, is that we learn more about things when we have someone else kind of mirroring back and seeing things and asking questions. And these are things, look, I've been doing this for over a decade. I'm super, super smart, Christine. My clients get amazing results, but I need a coach because I don't see what I'm doing. And once a coach says that to me, I just want to go like hit the side of my face, going like, I can't believe this, you know? And there's so many things that we just don't realize that we're doing because we can't get out of our own head. And what happens is we're seeing things with our own lenses. So when you see it with your own lenses, you accept it to be true. It's like, have you ever heard that old joke about somebody a woman is asking her mom why they always make a pot roast in a certain way? Have you heard that joke? And should I tell the joke or not? Or
Oh, please do. Yes,
well,
definitely.
yeah. So just in basic terms, a woman's asking like, why do asks her mother, and the mother says, I don't know, ask your grandmother. We've just always made it that way. And because what they do is they take the pot roast and they slice off one end and they slice off the other and they put it in the pan and do whatever they're going to do. So she was wondering why, like she thought maybe that made it taste better or more tender or cook faster or whatever. And the grandmother said, no, we just didn't have a pan big enough, and that's how we cut the ends. And people just started doing it. But see, we don't realize that, and we do the same stuff over and over and over again without realizing it. So to your point, Christine, we see some stuff, right? Like we might say for somebody who's trying to lose weight, for example, you might see, geez, I'm eating a lot of candy, or you might be able to say, like, as an entrepreneur, gee, I don't seem to be getting through my to-do list the way I want. I mean, you might see some stuff, but really and truly, to really do the deep work, you really need somebody who is intuitive, who's experienced, who can kind of like start asking you some questions and help pointing you in the right direction. That saves you years off your life. And it just opens things up for you because, like I said, I don't see it. And I teach this stuff, but we don't see ourselves. We don't see the way we're doing it. So that's part of it. The other part, and I don't know if have you talked about inner child work or any of that with your
We really haven't. We've talked about the tapes that we inherit, and all the things that assail us as children, but we have not ever really talked about the inner child. So definitely, let's go into that.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit because I don't want to freak people out. So understand, everyone, I am actually really traditional. So I'm not like super like I don't have purple hair and go woo woo and all this, but this stuff is right on and it gets results. So inner child is that and I'm not talking about people with split personalities. So I'm not talking about any of the DSM sixes or any of the psychological issues. What I'm talking about is when things have happened to us at younger ages, that often as an adult, our younger self takes over. And this happens more often than we even realize. And in fact, the joke, one of the first times I ever heard about it was one of my teachers, and he said, it's like we buy a house with a kindergarten mind. And yeah, I thought you would appreciate that, Christine, being in real estate, because we're just going like, whoa, look how big, and look at the yard, and look, we could put a swing set in there, and look at
So
this, and look at
true.
that, and woo,
Yeah, exactly. The couch is so
and then
pretty, and they just made cookies. I'm
and
like, really?
there's a big tree. Woohoo, climb the tree. We get all excited, like woohoo. And then later on the adults like, holy, what did I just get into? Like, I'm gonna own this for like the next 30 years or something. And we do all these things. In fact, my clients, as I teach them more about this, my clients are just like, oh my God, I can't believe that was my 5-year-old doing this. Because and what happens is, in a really basic nutshell, is that our 5-year-old, or however old our younger self is, wants to protect us, wants to keep us safe. They think it's that role. But when you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and so on, you don't want that little 5-year-old making decisions. So Christine, if let's say you were going to go into partnership with somebody, like another realtor, for example. Well, your little 5-year-old might be going, she could be kind of mean to us, so let's don't do it, right? How little 5-year-olds are. So you might turn down a really big opportunity where you, as I don't know how old you are, but you're an adult, would say like, look, this person has X more experience than me, they have X more connections, they're willing to work with me. This could potentially be a really great partnership. But your little one is like, it could be dangerous and not fun and all this kind of stuff, and the little kid ends up running the show. So I teach my clients how to soothe their younger self. Again, I'm not talking about split personalities, everybody, but how to get the younger self to kind of soothe themselves. And then the adult can make the best decisions, because you want to make that decision, like who you're going to go into partnership with, or who you're going to take on a client, or what real estate firm you're going to work with, and so on and so on and so on, right? You know, you don't want a little kid telling you. I mean, would you? I mean, I don't know if you have any 5-year-olds in your life, but would you want a 5-year-old telling you what to do with your business right now?
No, definitely not.
I
But
know,
how
but
can
they
you
do.
how can you know that it's the 5-year-old making the decision? Because I'm sure that they convince you that it's a great decision. Like, you're doing it, you're in charge, but really it's like your 5-year-old's going, "No, no, 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 I'm not gonna do that."
It's usually a much more emotional decision, and it's usually is very fear based. And it's something that when you're able to take that step back, you go like, I never would have done that. When you're able to kind of logically look at something, go like when you're able to be, I don't know if you've talked about the term about being present. So when you're able to really be present and say like, I never would have done that, like I wouldn't have partnered up with that person, or I wouldn't have said no, or I wouldn't have bought that house, or I wouldn't have whatever, I wouldn't have painted the walls green or whatever. It's you realize it was your younger self.
Yeah, so
And
it's sort
again,
of forcing yourself to take a breath, take a step back, and look at it with your logical, grown-up mind.
yeah, and like I said, that's some of the work I'll do with my clients too, because and then they'll start laughing. They go, I can't believe that kid is everywhere. And I'm like, oh yeah. So when they don't want to make cold calls, it's not the adults is like, what's the big deal? So if someone says no, so what? You can say, like, I'm just gonna call another person. I mean, you as an adult know you will be perfectly safe. If you cold called somebody and they said, gee, Christine, I'm sorry, I already have a realtor, you're not gonna, you're not gonna burn up or shrivel or die, right? I mean, you know that logically. But your 5-year-old is like scared as anything to do it. So when your 5-year-old talks you out of it, you're not making any cold calls. So when I'm able to help my clients do that, then they're able to learn to talk to their younger self and kind of let the little kid go out and play, and they do the stuff that grown-ups do. Again, and we have younger selves, we have teenagers, we have you name it, all, and really they're not coming from a bad place. They're not bad people or bad kids. They just want to protect us. They want to keep us safe. Because if you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of the basic needs we have is to be safe.
And it needs to be loved and accepted too, and I imagine that that is more.
Very primary with the kids. Yep.
Yeah, exactly, more so for kids. Once you grow up, you're like, "Well, I don't want that person to like me anyway," or, you
Yeah.
actually could be a little bit more objective about it.
Yep.
Interesting. So all that, do you feel that all that, uh, childhood, uh, I don't wanna call it trauma because it's not actually trauma, but childhood
And
lessons or
sometimes it
childhood.
is.
Yeah,
Sometimes
true.
it is, right? Like if let's say you had a part in a play in first or second grade, and let's say you forgot the lines, it's going to be very difficult for you without getting some help to all of a sudden be able to do presentations and stuff, because that little kid is going to go, and let's say everyone laughed at you because you forgot your lines, or you dropped something, or whatever, maybe you had a stain on your shirt, and everyone just made fun of you, because you know how little kids can be like that.
Right.
You've got some work to do to be able to say like, look, I'm not that same kid at 5 years old. I'm now 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so but that's really more of a mini trauma, right? It was very traumatic for the child at the time, but it isn't as if you had this traumatic childhood, right? It's just the typical childhood filled with little traumas, little drama
but
and
it,
trauma,
but it depends
trauma.
on how important you make it.
Yeah.
Right? And it depends on how often you keep playing those tapes over and over again.
Hmm.
Some people play them a lot, some people don't. And everybody's really different, and how their upbringing is. What I believe is that it isn't about, the work I do isn't about examining somebody's belly button. That's not, how that old expression, that's not the type of work. It's really just to help somebody move forward. And, if there, if there is a known reason for doing it, let's just kind of clear it out, which we do, we clear it out and let them start from scratch.
Yeah. So, Kate, let me just detour for a minute.
Mhm.
How did you, what attracted you to this line of work? I mean, you make it sound like it's sort of a normal progression from your sales work, but actually, obviously, not
Wasn't,
everybody who was laid off in 2008 did this. So, so how did
wasn't.
you find yourself here?
Yeah, so, you know those vacations I was talking about that I used to go on? And I was on I think one of the last vacations I took, there's a place I used to go to in the Caribbean in St. Lucia. And I was there and they used to have classes like meditation and yoga. And I went to meditation class and the instructor's voice was just so wonderful. I mean, I loved his voice. And afterwards, I was complimenting him. I said, "You just have the most beautiful voice." I mean, it was just beautiful. Like, and we were just talking, and I just kind of joked around. I said, "If only you could help me give up ice cream." And he's like looking at me like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I'm from Boston." I said, "We have ice cream shops on every corner of the city, right? You know, I mean, at least we used to, there's like Brigham's and Friendly's and this one and all the specialties and the mom and pop and everything, and our ice cream shops are open year round. If you travel to other areas, like, a lot of times they're just open in the summer. Ours are open year round. So you could technically eat ice cream year round. In high school, my best friend and I worked at a Brigham's. Now, of course, they don't really have the shops anymore, but we worked at a Brigham's ice cream shop. We had a blast, making sundaes and all sorts of stuff, just being really goofy. And I've always loved ice cream. And the problem is that ice cream is, sugar and cream and fat and all that kind of stuff. So when I was talking to this fellow and I kind of explained, and he's like looking at me because he's from St. Lucia, he doesn't know Boston and ice cream and all this kind of stuff. And he said, "You know what?" He said, "I just learned this technique." He said, "Can I try it with you?" And when you go on vacation, Christine, you know how you're like, sure, I'll do this, I'll try that, I'll eat this, I'll, whatever, right? Um, so he did this technique. He took me to this area outside, and no one else around me. We did this technique, and I had as much interest in eating ice cream at that point as I did like eating my cell phone. Just it's like, wow, that's really cool. But I didn't think very much about it. Didn't know what the technique was called. Didn't matter to me. All I knew is it was a beautiful day. It was the Caribbean. I wanted to go back down to the beach. So I thanked him, all this kind of stuff. And then I saw him a little bit later and we exchanged contact information. And later I got back home and I don't know, maybe it was about 10 days later or so. And my boss was telling me that our company was merging. And he said, I just gone to work for them, maybe, I don't know, 8, 9 months earlier. And he said, all these things I promised you when I lured you away from your current company to come work for us, all those things I promised you, I can't do anymore because we're merging. So I've lost the funding. And I was really pissed. And he said, come into the office. Because a lot of times I was out in the field. I wasn't always in the office. He said, come into the office tomorrow. Let's talk. So, Christine, 11 years ago, Skype was really, really bad. Skype was, I don't know if you used it at that point, but it was echoey. It constantly cut off. You get disconnected. It would take forever to get a contact. There were echoes. It was horrible. But I reach out to this guy on Skype and I said, can you help me? I said, I have to meet with my boss tomorrow. I'm really upset because all these reasons that I went to work for him, he can no longer give me. He was going to give me a private office in downtown Boston in one of the towers. I mean, Christine, so we were talking about some really nice stuff, and all these things. And I had my own secretary and blah, 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 blah. And now all of a sudden it's not happening. And I was really furious. So this fellow did this technique with me and all my anger against my boss just dissipated. So I met with my boss the next day and, he's expecting like fire and all this kind of stuff. And said, I was really calm. I said, what's going on? And he told me, and we both are very calm towards each other. And he's like, look, I don't want you to get upset and leave. So I'm going to give you more money, more vacation time. I'm thinking, great, another trip. and, and it was a win-win for both of us. And I know for a fact that if I had not used this technique, I would have gone in very angry because I had left a very, working for another very successful company because he promised me things. And instead, I was calm, he was calm because energy reflects energy. And we both just stayed very, very calm, had a great conversation. And then a few more other things happened over time. And I just reached out to this fellow over Skype and I just said, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And finally I said, okay, enough's enough. I'm going to learn how to do it. And it's a technique called EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, tapping. And I have since then, I spent tens of thousands of dollars getting really highly trained. I've been on big telesummits with 500,000 people listening to me as, they give, and talking about one of the areas, like let's say procrastination, whatever, we'd have an audience of 500,000, which I'm sure every podcaster wishes they had an audience of 500,000, but, it was a big deal. And I got to do it for several years. And, that just led me on this whole mindset thing. It was just totally accidental that I just started learning more, and I started getting clients because people were like, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And I'm like, sure. And the people kept going who are entrepreneurs, how are you getting clients? So I was like, well, let me show you. And so my business just kind of accidentally started that way. And I'm a very naturally curious person. I also am an avid learner. So I've pulled in, laws of attraction, which I love. I've learned from one of the top Hay House authors. She's a friend of mine. So she teaches me stuff. And I keep continuing to learn more with tapping. I know about 5 dozen different techniques in tapping, and some I've made up and some I've learned. And neuroscience I've pulled in over the last few years, and just as well as my own expertise in business. So I'm not like woo woo purple hair, and nothing against people with purple hair, but I'm just saying that's not who I am. I'm very practical and down to earth, but I know how to get results. And I'm just like, however I can help somebody, whether it's a strategy or mindset shift, that's what I'm going to do. So that's
We
my
actually
story.
had That's fascinating. Isn't that amazing that you just happen to like the person's voice and that
Yep. Yep.
that set you on this road? Wow, amazing. It's amazing the things that can come to us when we're on vacation and our mind is kind of
Yep.
open, as you said. Like, yeah, I'll try that, I'll do that, whatever. Let's do it. Yep, fascinating. Yeah, I had Betsy Muller on. Do you know her? She also does EFT.
No. There's a lot of people out there who have
Yeah,
since
EFT.
since learned it, and all this kind of stuff. So I'm sure there's thousands of other people, who've learned some of it or bits and pieces and stuff. It's, when I first started doing it, people's heads would start spin around, like, what is this and all that? But, the results are there. So
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole I understand that there's a lot of research going on as well to prove that it actually, to bring some science to what people think is that woo-woo purple hair kind of
mhm.
um, practice, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, but you know what? I look at it, and I've talked to different people about that too, because there have done brain scans and they see changes and all that. What I really think about is, what are the results, right? I remember once talking to a top level marketing research person. She was a multi-millionaire entrepreneur, and she did marketing research, and we were talking about it. And of course, she's coming from her marketing research brain, and she said, "But Kate, what if it only lasts 30 years?" And I'm like, but what if it does last 30 years? I mean, my dad, who passed away a couple years ago, he was a dentist. And hopefully, all the fillings he gave people, will last forever. But, if you grind in your teeth or, I mean, if you got 30 years out of a cavity, I look at that's a blessing. I mean, of a filling
Exactly.
rather, right? I mean,
Right, right. Yeah.
nothing, what lasts 30 years? So to me, when I hear that argument from people, I'm like, look, if I can help somebody, whether or not it shows a difference in your brain scan or not, but if I can help you so you're no longer afraid to do this, or I get people like who've done therapy for years, and they do sessions with me and are able to finally get on an airplane again. I see stuff like that. The results are there. I don't need to, and that's all I really care about is, if you're able to do what you wanted to do, then the results are there.
I guess, you were talking about airplanes, phobia. Have you done any sort of, have you seen people during the pandemic coming to you saying, okay, I just need to be able to go into a restaurant without freaking out that I'm going to die of COVID or whatever. I mean, are you doing any sort of COVID specific
A-
treatments right now?
Actually, almost the flip way, because when COVID first started happening, probably about a month or so later, remember people started saying, I'm going to start making masks. Remember, a lot of people were posting on Facebook that they're making masks and donating. I can't sew. I have absolutely no interest in sewing, but I do know where my talents lie. And I started reaching out to hospitals. Started with MSPCA. So those of you in Boston, because they take care of my 16-year-old four-legged girl. And then I moved on to people hospitals all across the country. I donated my time, and I did stress reduction workshops for them. And I pulled in both neuroscience. I taught them different things to do during the day, because let's say first they're dealing with one crisis and they're going to the next crisis. I taught them different ways of being able to ground in between, so they didn't go crazy, because that would make their brain explode. And because, as you recall, in March and April and even May, things were really wacky. So I did that for a lot of hospitals across the country. And then I would do tapping at the end. And speaking of tapping, it kind of was funny because I told him at the end, you're going to get to experience a technique at the end. I said, I'm purposely doing it at the end because, you all do Western medicine. This is a bit Eastern. So if you don't like it, you can get off and it's not, it's not the end of the world. It was like, even though I taught them neuroscience, which technically has all the research, tapping was always their favorite part, which I thought was really, really interesting. So yeah, yeah. So that's what I have done. I've helped people. I'll take it back. Not so much about people going into restaurants and things like that. What I've helped people more with, especially the first 3, 4 months, is really ground during this because people were really freaking out about the pandemic, as you recall. I mean, now I think people are stressed, they're burnt out, they're scared. But this was a different type of freak out in the beginning. Um, and all my clients who I work with that time have been successful, both business wise and personally. That one was all upset because now she had to homeschool her kids and it was going to mess everything up. And now she's like, I swear that's like the best thing because I'm having all this quality time. So I help them do shifts in how to look at their experience. And one thing I've been teaching about the pandemic, Christine, is that you don't get to opt in or opt out, but you do get to choose how you're going to experience it. So I help them come from a different place and take their power back as opposed to being in victim mode. So that's how I've helped people with that. Being able to pivot, and I kind of hate that word, but now the new word is viable. Whatever word we're going to use, but really, how to survive and ultimately thrive right now.
Yeah, it's true. It's interesting how people have it's coming back to mindset, right?
Hmm.
The mindset that you take into this situation, in this case, the pandemic. My first thought was, oh wow, I have all this time now
Hmm.
that I can focus on projects.
Hmm.
And so that's what I did. I started making goals that I was going to finish some things that I had out there that I hadn't really attacked yet. And I don't want to belittle it. I don't want to minimize or trivialize people's experiences. And I know that a lot is happening, but for me, I felt um, I don't feel impacted. I guess
Hmm.
is the thing to say. I don't feel that my life has changed because of it. I don't feel on a daily basis. It almost doesn't feel real to me.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's a choice or, uh, you know, some type of a sickness.
Well,
Trying to think of the right kind of
it,
mental illness to
it,
call it, but
it's all how you choose to look at it, right? And everyone's been, I do believe everyone's been impacted just on a different level. Because some obviously are impacted in how they work. If maybe they're working in an office, now they have to work at home. If they have kids, what's going on with the homeschooling. Incomes have, for a lot of people have been affected. Your market, first you guys were hit kind of hard because there was nothing. You couldn't do open houses and you had to do limited open houses. But especially in the Boston area, real estate, it can be a really, really solvent industry no matter what's going on in the world. Um, but it's also a time too, I think, for people to slow down in some ways, be introspective, and really decide. So, what do I want to include in my life? Like, what is most important that I want in my life now going forward? And I think that's what the pandemic allows you, no matter where you are, whether you've been hit greatly or barely touched at all, it really does allow you that opportunity to make those choices and not have to give excuses or rationalize why you are doing something or no longer doing something.
yeah, absolutely. It is a good time if you're able to do that, right? I know some people haven't been able to have that. Uh, I guess the gift. I'm thinking actually of my sister because she's a nurse and she does her stuff on the phone with people.
Hmm.
And so literally she would not even be able to get up to get a drink of water because her phone would just constantly, it's like one of
Hmm.
those auto dialers, and she would be just forever on the phone. And her son's at home and trying to homeschool or at least make sure
Yeah.
that he's awake, and completely
And,
different experience.
and exactly. And that's where I talked about that people really were being traumatized. That's one of the reasons I did all the work, the volunteer work at the hospitals, is because they are being, they're being traumatized constantly, between work and the news and personal life and everything. And there's just no escape. And I wanted to do what I could to help them.
Yeah, that's very generous. nice to start, like you say, I'm not going to make masks, but I can help you in this
Yeah. Know
probably
what you
much more far-reaching way.
know what your gifts are, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So how does it look like to you? So if someone came to you and said, "Okay, this is um," how does your typical client approach you? Do they have like a goal, or they just come and say, I'm just not happy, or I'm not satisfied," or I mean,
Could be anything,
yeah,
and I always want to have a conversation with somebody because I'm very results oriented and I want to make sure that I can actually help them. And that I'm the right person. I want to know what else they've done, what they've tried, why this is important to them now. What are they willing to do? What are they not willing to do? Um, because if they have certain, hugely constraining limits, it might make it hard for them to get what they need. In that case, I might say, just get my book on Amazon, it's $20 or in Kindle, it's 10, but I want to be able to help people that I know I'm going to help get the best results. That's really, really important to me, as opposed to like, let's sign up everybody. One thing I've kind of earned that right. I've been doing this long enough, and I know I have conversations with people when I get goosebumps. That's like my sign. Like I'm like, yes, this is where I want to be. I want to work with this person. And it's exciting. And some of my clients, Christine, have worked with me for, 3 months, like a minimum, short time, because like, it's something very, very specific. Like this is going on and I've got a big speaking gig and I'm really anxious. Can you help me with that? Or something really specific. And other times I've had some clients, 6, 7, 8 years, because as we work on one thing, now let's do this thing. And okay, so you got me to make me money, and now I want to hit 50,000. Now I want to hit 6 figures. Now I want to hit multi 6 figures. Now I want to do events. Now I want to speak, and just keep taking them, back to their self image, helping them up level their self image so they can reach this new goal.
yeah, and that's actually brings us back to where we were first at the beginning of the conversation, is self-image.
Yeah,
And if you can't see yourself in this new role, or in this particular successful goal that you think you're going to have, then you're not going to be able to achieve that.
that's right. But it's learning how to shift into that, because it doesn't mean it's impossible. It only means you don't know how to do it.
Right.
But laws of attraction, for every question, there is an answer. Right? All it just means is that you yourself don't know the answer, but somebody does.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking when you were talking about coaches and things like that. I mean, we are all guilty of certain mindsets or certain paradigms. And
Mhm.
until someone says to you, "Well, why do you feel that way?" or "Why do you do this?" and "Why do we eat the pot roast this way?" You're just like, "Oh, wow. I don't. I mean, doesn't everybody do that? I don't. Isn't that normal?"
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you have for people who know that they want more, um, just as a preliminary thing, right? If they're not quite ready to have a coach, but they just know that they're not quite, that they know they have more potential than they're exercising, than they're realizing at the moment. Is there anything they can do short of hiring a coach to sort of start them on the journey?
Well, why not have a conversation that they're limiting themselves if they think they're not ready? I mean, I'm just saying, it's like someone saying,
Yeah,
I'm not ready to get a house. I'm not, have that
yeah, yeah,
conversation,
yeah.
because if you just shut down and say, I'm not ready, how do you know?
Right.
Maybe, it's just like someone saying, I can't get a mortgage. Well, I'm sure lots of mortgage brokers who are able to work with people with all different types of things and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So, maybe they are right, maybe they aren't in that place, to just give that way, you want to have that conversation with somebody.
Mhm.
And just to kind of as a second thing is that whenever you do up level and you say, okay, I am going to hire a coach, it's going to be scary. I just like to let everyone know, because you're taking a new step, right? But
Mhm.
you have to, because otherwise you're going to keep doing that same 70% over and over again and getting the same results.
Yeah.
And there's lots of coaches out there, and it should be someone that you resonate with. That makes sense, that they get what you want to do, that they're not I personally don't like cookie cutter coaches, that they really hear you, and they're going to help you achieve what you want to achieve, and that you like their methods. So for example, if someone was not into mindset work, they probably would not be a good client for me. But if someone, not that they have to know stuff or that they have to know laws of attraction, but if they're even open, then like my clients are more, they don't really care how I'm helping them. They just like the fact that I am helping them. And, that's why you want to have a conversation. So I kind of would shift, I would reframe your question and just say, have a conversation. You don't have to have an hour-long conversation. You can have a 10-minute conversation and say, this is what I want to do, but I don't, I'm feeling kind of stuck, and you go from there.
So how do you find coaches? I mean, obviously, just to give you an analogy, I have been searching for a very long time for someone who I like to cut my hair.
Hmm.
And each time I go, you go, they cut your hair, and you're like, it's just not really, it's not growing out the way I want. They didn't listen to me. They didn't whatever. I'm going to now have to go to somebody different. And it's so traumatic for me because
Well, it's hair,
you
yeah.
look bad for like
But
8 weeks in between.
hair grows back. So I actually had a client, just to answer your question, and she went to do a VIP day with me, but she was feeling kind of traumatized because she had done a VIP day with another coach, and the person totally sent them in another direction. And this woman who happened to be somebody who was working a current job. She wanted to be able to leave her job and have her business go full time. She also had a few health issues. So she had some limitations as to how much she could actually do on her free time. And this person had given her like this power plan, plus this woman also had kids. But this coach had given her just so much to do that it was just physically impossible. And I said to this prospective client, I said, look, I said, it's a two-way street. I said, did you ever say to her that, look, this isn't what I want, or I can't do this, or it's hard to fit in my schedule? She's like, no. I said, then you kind of own it too. I said, she ended up doing a VIP day with me. She ended up hitting her goal because we set up a plan. She was able to quit her job within 6 months. But it has to be a two-way street. And a lot of it you start hearing as you're talking to the person. So like for the haircut, I don't know how much you can do it now because of the pandemic, but I used to always go and meet with the person. I'd hear if they were asking me, if they were answering my questions, if they listened to my primary concerns, and and how they responded to it. Because I figured if they weren't responding at that point, once I pay them, it's not going to change. So there were a lot of people I was able to kind of X right out, or feelings like I walk in the salon, I was like, oh my God, this place is just too noisy or too much. I don't like it. Or this place looks dirty, or this, whatever, all those things you pick up on and start paying attention to it. And so it's the same with a coach too, is pay attention. Is a person listening? Are they answering your question? Sometimes I'll say to my clients, like, can I be direct with you? Because once they give me permission, then I have permission. But other times I'll say, can I give you a long answer? Because I want to kind of explain and go so they kind of understand it. But it should feel scary, but it should also feel right, if that makes sense. And I would challenge you, Christine, that probably with your hair is that maybe you didn't ask the right questions, you didn't listen to their responses, you might not have gone into the salon, you might not have talked or shown pictures of past haircuts, or talked about past problems, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I would challenge you a little bit to say, like, what part of it do you own as well?
Oh, that's an excellent point. And I uh, was spoiled, not to get too far down my hair road, but I was spoiled when I was young. I had this person who I just stumbled onto, and she
Mhm.
used to go to all the shows, and she'd say, "Oh, can I try this on you?" I'd be like, "Yeah," So I never had to think about what I wanted for hairstyle. She would just do it. And I've said that now to other people and be like, no, no, I'm not going to do whatever I want because you're not going to like it and whatever. Like, oh
Yeah,
gosh,
and that's when you talk about your parameters. Like you tell them, like, I'm a person who uses straightener or this or that, or I love putting 5 products in my hair. Or I just like washing my hair and letting it dry. I mean, that's
right,
when you have to be like,
right.
you know, and the same with a coach is that you have to say, like, a coach should be asking you, like, how much time, how many resources, because that makes a difference too in how they're going to coach you.
Right.
How quickly do you need to hit this goal? Is it something like, hey, as long as I hit it in the year, it's good, or I need to start making money tomorrow? Where is the intensity? What is the sense of importance on it?
Hmm.
And so
And
also listen to the questions that the coach is asking you too. Not just are they hearing your answers, but what questions are they asking you?
yeah. And is there, um, forgive my naivete, is there like a directory or a place, a resource where you could go to sort of learn about what areas people specialize in and things like that to give you a way to kind of hone in on who you might want to interview and speak with?
I don't think there really is. I mean, you can always Google people, ask people, or else just contact me, info@katebeeders.com, and see if I'm the right person, you know. Um, a lot of times too, when someone can just email and say, I'm looking for a coach to help me with X, Y, or Z. Is this something, like if someone said to me, I'm looking for a coach to help me quit smoking. When I first started my business, I help people with that. I don't do it anymore. I would say, hey, that's not me, but maybe try so and so, that kind of thing. And the thing is, when you start working with a coach, even though I've had some of my clients, almost my whole entire business, sometimes it's just for 3 months. It really depends. Sometimes it's just like, this is the coach to help me be able to do this, and this is the coach to help me do this, whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of the people who I respect and who's, I guess you could say, who I might want to emulate, or that I am really impressed with their style and what they're doing, and with their lives and things like that, they all have coaches. They all have people who,
Yeah.
as you said, it's remarkable as we think you are, you also have a coach, someone who's helping you to go to
I
the
have
next
I have
level
I
to,
have 3 coaches.
oh my.
And that's because they all help me in a different area.
Uh-huh.
There's tapping, there's mindset, and there's business.
Hmm.
Because there's not a lot of people who do what I do, who have such a high level in both areas.
Hmm.
And I think they're all really important. So I work with people, I have multiple coaches. Um, and for really great coaches, it's made all the difference.
Yeah. How did you find your people?
Um, so I'm just wondering, how much time we have left? Just
Yeah, normally I would be looking at my phone, but tell me, what time is it? Sorry.
I just I'm just looking because I know I have
Hold
a
on.
client calling
Yeah.
in like 2
Oh
minutes.
my gosh. Wow, we have just
So
gone
so
completely crazy.
maybe that's for another interview.
My gosh, I am so sorry. I've got talking to you, so I've been enjoying talking to you so much. We've just completely gone off the rails. So I'm just going to say thank you so much, Kate, for being with us today. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I somehow got upside down when I dropped my phone. Uh, and I hope we can
May
have a
I give my
conversation another day. Please, yes,
thank you. May I give my contact information? So
please do.
anybody
Absolutely.
interested, you go to my website, it's katebeeders.com, and that's KateBeeders.com. You can always email my team, info@katebeeders.com, if you want to have a conversation. There's no obligation. Always happy to have a conversation with somebody. And if you are in the real estate industry, I've worked with lots of people in the industry and helping them do all sorts of things like go from work. I always mix it up, going from working with buyers to sellers. Am I saying it right? Because they want to be the listing agents and
Yeah, yeah.
helping them get 100% closes and all this kind of stuff. So
Excellent, excellent,
yeah. But happy to have, talk to anybody. So again, info@katebeeders.com or go to katebeeders.com.
excellent.
This was really fun, Christine. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Kate. Sorry. I'm very sorry that I let that go. Oh shoot. I'm sorry that I let that go overboard.
Oh, no worries. But I just was thinking at the time, and I know I've got a call. So
Yes, I'm sorry. Well, and I said that I would help answer some questions for